Welcome everyone. Today we are joined by Julie Mellae. How are you, Julie?
Hello, Gabby. How are you? Thank you for having me here.
You are so welcome. I've been looking forward to welcoming Julie to have a chat and share her incredible research with us. Julie's researched and written an incredible book called Australian Lyme Crimes, The Global Disgrace. And as someone that was diagnosed with Lyme's in Australia, in a country where we apparently, as by our government's standards, says we don't have Lyme's here, it doesn't exist. She battled against the medical system, against get anyone like listening to her and getting the help that she needs to actually get treatment for this really horrific, I guess you could call it like an autoimmune attacking disease, to get her health back so she could actually get out there and tell the rest of us exactly what's happening. And this is such a precious and topic that's very, very close to my heart, because I know a lot of survivors that have suffered with Lyme's through their lifetime. I actually know a lot of survivors very recently who are preparing to speak out, who have just very suspiciously come down with Lyme's, some from tick bites, some from unknown causes. And this particular bioweapon, because that's what we're talking about, and the bioweapons have been around for a very long time, and I think we've gotten used to the current scam that's going on with a bioweapon, but this kind of technology has been used for decades against us. And survivors have been really battling against this. A lot of times when people are making reports or challenging different things, it's an autoimmune that comes up, and it just it just seems very, very suspicious. This kind of thing comes into people's lives when they're taking action and really start slowing them down. They can't do so much because their health's a concern. So yeah, I'm so looking forward to you sharing some of Julie's research, because she's really went into where this disease come from, how it was put out in our communities all around the world, what Australia had to do with it, because even though Australia says there's no Lymes here, they definitely had their part in this. So welcome, Julie. And yeah, I would love for you to share with us, some of the research on what you discovered about this horrific, disease that's
Gabby, it's such a big, convoluted, complicated story that, somebody said to me it should be a movie because there's just so many elements to it. But my research starts during the Cold War, from the 40s to the 80s. And what I discovered was that Nazi scientists were repatriated from America, escaping the Nuremberg trials, of course. And there was a doctor called Dr. Erich Traub, who was Mengeler's second-hand man. So you can imagine what atrocities he's already been involved with.
Wow.
He took a team to Plum Island, to the animal research station there, and his job was to continue to work on tick and bug biowarfare. Wow. The Americans attempted to quieten all the Plum Island stuff down and say, no, nothing happened there, when in fact it did. Ticks were released from there. Animals were deliberately poisoned and killed with ticks. He was working with bacteria and other different things to make it more toxic. But in the 1940s, 50s, over in Fort Detrick, Maryland, Dr. Burgdorfer, Willy Burgdorfer, the namesake of the spirochete bacteria that poisons us, and a cousin to syphilis, was breeding up toxic ticks with bacteria, with viruses, with funguses, the worst of bioweapons, bacteria that were already held in the lab. Now, there's a whole list of symptoms that we suffer from, and they have names attached to them. So bear with me, because I want to explain what is in the Borrelia, which is the bacteria, the spirochete bacteria that poison. It's a poison, and it affects every single system in our body: mind, body, soul, flesh, bones, muscles, nerves. Neurological symptoms are just more to bear than a lot of the other symptoms, because the bacteria crosses the blood-brain barrier. So some of the symptoms that we suffer, and we can suffer them all together, it's not just one here, it's not just...
I was going to say, Julie, as well, so a really important thing that you've just said then that I think, I just want to reiterate is we're kind of taught, like, Lymes, not that it exists here, but if you do happen to get it, is from a tick bite. And, that's just, bad luck. You've been in an area where there's ticks, etc. You're actually saying that this is, come from research. It's come from labs. They've actually bred these ticks and put poisons into them.
Yes.
Shocking.
So amongst this, list of disease that we carry with us is Epstein-Barr, Babesia, Bartonella, Rickettsia. It's patented. Mycoplasma, Chlamydia, Morgellons, which is patented, Anaplasmosis, which is patented, Coxiella, which is a B-grade bioweapon being used actively, Q fever. It presents similar to lupus disease, MS, Parkinson's, motor neuron, dementia, which I have battled through myself, Alzheimer's and fibromyalgia, as well as a whole plethora of other body symptoms like arthritis, like sight disturbances, taste disturbances, tinnitus that is just, beyond the pale of driving you mad.
The ear ringing, isn't it?
Yes, I had that for 3 years. And sometimes I hit my head against a wall just to, feel something other than this constant ringing in my ears. So the neurological aspect of it is alarming. The whole body thing is alarming, but most alarming of all is that Lyme disease is now considered an STD, in that babies are being born with Lyme disease because it crosses the placenta to the unborn child. The baby's being born with Lyme disease and there is no care. Doctors, nurses haven't been trained because it doesn't exist in Australia. So we have found the Borrelia in tears, in sweat, in semen and vaginal fluids. So it can be passed very easily from one person without the tick.
And isn't that interesting about all those patented symptoms, which implies that this is not a natural phenomenon?
It's not. There's nothing natural about it.
You can't have a natural product that's patented. It can't come from nature and be patented.
It can't.
Without being manipulated, right? So
that's right. That's right. And anaplasmosis has been spiked with AIDS, just to make sure that, we are really very sick people. Now, my journey has been 7 years and I couldn't get medical care that I needed. Nobody believed me. In spite of losing 10 kilos, my local doctor said to me, look, I think you're attention seeking. and I had Morgellons coming out of my skin. And I went, well, what are these things? Like, I had no idea. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know what these bugs were. And she went, oh, I don't know. Just slap a bit of sorbeline on that pet. It'll be okay. And I went, wow. In the meantime, I'd been sitting in detox baths, collecting specimens. I got very, very OCD. Specimens of these things coming out of my body, and they were actual bugs. I could see eyes, legs, wings, spidery looking bits, eyes, 3 eyes in these bugs. It was just horrific. And I thought they were coming from my cedar ceiling, like something had built up in there and they're all dropping into the bath. But then I realised they weren't coming from the ceiling, they were coming from me.
Oh my God, Julie, that would have been terrifying.
And it was like, I kept thinking, you know what, Stephen King couldn't write anything more terrifying than this. And I thought I would go absolutely crazy until it just kicked in some self-discipline. Like, you collect this specimens, girlfriend, because one day you're going to need this to prove to the world what's going on. I still got no treatment. I was getting sicker and sicker, and naturopath was keeping me alive, thank God. And 2 years later, when I finally found a doctor that believed me, he was shortly deregistered.
No way.
He may have been looking after myself, and he diagnosed Lyme and other people in the area, because we live near a national park, there's ticks abounding. He may have been caring for other Lyme victims as well, hence his deregistration.
That's how much they want to silence this.
Yes. And I had been to an infectious disease professor in Sydney with my samples of whoever knew what. I didn't even know what they were called then. And very, very vulnerable, very, very sick. Just to get to the appointment caused me dreadful anxiety. And then I was told by him, well, with a snide grin on his face, look, if you just got off the ice, you'd be feeling so much better, because I had lesions all over my body from these bugs that had been coming out that itch and sting and just eat the flesh away.
Wow.
I just cried. I said, and then I got angry and I said, look, the only ice that I get into comes out of my freezer. I don't take drugs. I'm on naturopathic medicines. I don't.
Life, like, how horrific.
And how about we just throw these samples of whatever it is that you've given me into the garbage bin? And I went, no way, do not throw those in the bin. I said, it's taken me a long time to collect those things, whatever they are. It's my intellectual property, and you are not throwing them in the bin.
Good on you. Well done.
But then I was so vulnerable. He said, look, I just want you to take your dress off and I'll just have a feel around. And because I did it. Like, why did I do that? I have no idea.
The programming of a medical specialist, right? We've got to listen to them. They're the experts. It's a hard one to break down. You poor thing.
So from that day onwards, according to my beautiful doctor that I had, that I developed post-traumatic stress syndrome, because I'd been to maybe 20 other doctors who couldn't diagnose me, didn't know what I was, thought I was attention seeking for drugs. Like, what drugs? I don't want drugs. I didn't need, I want to be told and tested correctly for what is going on in my body. Now, I have a friend who is a scientist that is looking into all of this. I can't say too much because I'm on a non-disclosure, but she said she does not understand how any of the labs in Australia don't see what she is seeing in our blood. She said because they're rampant cesspit of disease and bacteria. She said it's all moving. It shouldn't be moving the way it is. She said, I can see everything. Why do they not, when your bloods have been tested, write a note on there to say, you know, she doesn't have this, but according to the lab report, she needs follow-up on this, and this. They don't do anything. And that was something I've only learned in the last 2 weeks.
Wow. And so, Julie, what sort of numbers are we talking about in Australia with Lymes, people that have Lymes, or as we call them, Lymies, people that are suffering from those symptoms? Like, what would the estimate be of what we're talking about?
Gabbi, Australia refuses to keep a register because we don't have Lyme in Australia.
We don't register it, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, but we estimate somewhere around 250,000 Australians probably suffer from the effects of Lyme disease, whether they've been tested, not tested, know it or don't know it. Worldwide, the numbers are close now to 5 million. And because it's an STD, that is just growing. It's just, and you cannot tell me.
It's an epidemic. It's an absolute epidemic.
Well, it's a pandemic. I mean, look at the numbers, 250,000, 250,000 in Australia, 5 million worldwide, counting.
And this is horrifically sick people as well, Julie. I know
horrifically sick.
These people are often so sick, you know, that they're committing suicide because they can't get help. They're in so much pain. It's just horrific to think that.
And it's a helpless situation. They feel so helpless. We lose everything. You know, I became so ill, I could not pay a mortgage any longer. I had to sell my house. People can't pay rent. They can't pay for, you know, car insurance, anything. Their lives just become destroyed. And of course, there's no Medicare available if you are tested positive for Lyme, because it doesn't exist in Australia, or Centrelink for that matter too. So there's no money. We're chronically ill to the point of death, and nobody's believing us. Our friends and family get sick and tired of hearing how sick and tired we are, so they wander off, or they want to argue with you if you suspect you have Lyme or have tested positive for Lyme. Well, that doesn't exist in Australia, so don't be ridiculous. Like, we're all mental. And doctors have told me, you know, I have a psychological problem because I look all right.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with you?
That's the thing with autoimmunes. We can look fine. I mean, I've suffered with fibromyalgia, which is often confused with Lymes, for as long as you've been, you know, healing from Lymes as well. And there's such a common response from the public, from family, from doctors. You look fine. And it's like, meanwhile, I'm sitting here on fire. Every like muscle is like knotted. I'm like, yeah, okay.
I'm not fine on the inside. And even when I was like 10 kilos lighter, the other doctors that I'd been to see, they didn't know I was, you know, so small. They just thought that was me, you know. And I learned not to wear makeup, not to brush my hair, so that sort of go like this and look bedraggled and go, look, I'm sick. Do you think you can help me? Run some tests, do something. Oh, well.
It's just all too hard.
Oh, too hard? What test? Why is it so hard to run tests? My fabulous doctor that was deregistered did. And he found, you know, all sorts of swamp matter in my bloods. You know, the Lyme didn't come up, but a lot of other stuff did. And it wasn't until I had my blood tested privately that the Lyme was actually acknowledged.
Wow. So you had to go outside of the system, get your own blood tests run to find out, to even get a diagnosis. And how long since you first became, concernably and noticeably ill to creating your own diagnosis? Like, what sort of time period was that?
Maybe 12 months, because I had been bitten many, many times living in the Royal National Park south of Sydney. And I'd never paid attention to it in the past, never. Didn't occur to me. So ignorance was bliss. Maybe a year, I started to think, maybe this is Lyme disease. I'm not getting any better. In fact, I'm getting worse. And it still took another year after that for diagnosis. So I was just becoming more chronically ill every single day by not understanding what was going on with my body, adapting to the illness, but the bank not adapting to me and my non-mortgage paying. It was just sheer horror. And then, pulling this stuff out of my bath water, which was Morgellons, which, even up until 18 months ago, it was called delusions of parasitosis, because you can feel things moving around in your body. It itches, it stings. You can see the flesh being eaten away. But, it was delusional. Thank God now it's not. But if you type Morgellons, the first thing that comes up is it's delusional parasitosis.
I've had friends over the last few decades that have suffered with Morgellons, and it is such a horrific thing to live through. And it's so persistent. And I would love you to share, Julie, like, how does Morgellons relate to Lyme's? Is it a co-infection? Is it just something that most Lymies might also experience as well? Or how does it kind of link in?
It seems that 80% of Lyme disease patients suffer from Morgellons. Morgellons is a patented bioweapon, and it has an insect hormone attached to the disease. And what happens is we actually attract these insects to us. How they get into the skin and how they come out of the skin is something that I don't quite understand, but it's very real. And just recently, I was looking at the patent, and I thought, you know what? I wonder if there is a patented cure. And I did find one that was not peer reviewed, but included lactase topically. So what I'm doing at the moment is trying to develop a solution with this lactase to see if it starts slowing down the Morgellons. But I did discover that the Morgellons are protected in a biofilm on our skin. So what we need to do is disrupt their environment so that it becomes hostile by removing this biofilm. And it comes off on makeup pad removers and this lactase and water that I've got, and it's black. You can't see it on your skin. You can't feel it on your skin, but it's black. So that's what I'm trying to disrupt at the moment. And look, I could have a detox bath of Epsom salts, borax, and bleach. You'd think I was squeaky clean after that. An hour later, I get the makeup removal pads, the lactase solution, and rub my skin with the makeup pads, and it's coming out black still.
Wow.
So I'm working on that one.
So quickly. Good on you. I love your creative thinking. It's out of the box. You're like, I've got this this is happening. Found a little bit of research. What can I do to help people?
What am I going to do about this? And how can I help other people, you know, in the long term? But I'll test it out on myself first, and see what direction it takes me.
It's so interesting how in our healing journeys, it's like we've almost become, you know, our own specialists, because we're like, okay, this works, so I'm going to try play with this a little bit, see if this works. And that's what you have to do with a chronic illness. You've got to become the expert in yourself, in your mind, in your body. And take
I do maintain that Lyme disease patients all deserve an honorary doctorate for the research we do just to keep ourselves alive.
Wow.
We do work very hard when we're trying to establish some level of health, when we're trying to research, like, what the hell is going on here. So my book, Australian Lyme Crimes, was written by me. It describes my journey of the downward spiral of Lyme disease, and I mix the science in the most simple way possible, because I want Lymies to read this and be educated. They will be able to read it relatively easy, and throughout the book is a whole lot of links that, for further research, when you're up to it, you can go and do some more research. Also, in my book, I've inserted military documents and patents that have come from Willy Burgdorfer, from Erich Traub's experiments on Plum Island. And the most horrific thing I discovered when I thought I'd finished the book, and the Germans did it and the Americans did it, that'll be that. I thought, I wonder what the Australians were up to.
Yeah.
And to my horror, and I grieved again, I grieved all the way through this horrific journey of discovery.
Because you've lived the consequences of these bioweapons, as well as
We've deliberately been hurt. We've been deliberately made sick. That as early as 1940, the Australian CSIRO colluded with the Russian military at Sydney University on what? Tick bioweapons. Wow. So Australia was ahead of the game in this Cold War race for bioweapons. Yeah. You know, we beat. I mean, if it was a competition, Australia did really well. You know, before Erich Traub, Plum Island, and Fort Detrick, Australia had it sorted out with the Russians. So I've included one of their research pieces in there, and there's hundreds and thousands of them.
Wow.
And the reason I included these documents is that Lyme disease can make you neurologically lost in the head. There's a disconnect, and I was developing dementia. So to use my brain plasticity, I researched and made it a discipline. So to discover what the Russians and the Australians did just hurt me more than I was already hurt from discovering how our governments in the Allied Nations, which is now Five Eyes, deliberately hurt us.
Wow. And it's so interesting to see these same names, you know, Mellae, University of Sydney, coming up in experimentation with this bioweapon. When we know these names from, you know, our audience here with a lot of SRA and MK Ultra survivors, it's the same people, the CSIRO.
Yes.
Nightmare, you know, everyone sort of thinks, oh, Australia's a lucky country, the little innocent, you know, one down the bottom. No, we were like, no. And we still are a living petri dish for them.
I was horrified. I couldn't believe what I was discovering.
Oh,
You know, I just couldn't believe that our government has done this to us. And so people, you know, and rightly so, have issues with the whole COVID situation too. And I suffered from long COVID. Oh, joy. But let me tell you, they've been working on our bioweapons to hurt Australians since the 40s, and that's as far back as I can go.
wow.
So Lyme is the real pandemic.
Well, when we look at the numbers that you've just mentioned of over 250,000 in this country with such severe debilitating illness, that's way, way bigger than what they're putting out in the media at the moment.
Yeah, even for COVID numbers, you know, they're smaller than Lyme numbers.
That's right. And most people are getting better from the current bioweapon with 2 weeks rest. This is not what Lymes is. Lymes is such a multi-layered, multifaceted, bioweapon to heal from. And I know, like Julie's just been explaining to us, like, survivors will be going through healing one part and then something else will present, and then you get tired or you get a flu and you're back 3 steps and you're starting again. Like, they deliberately, and I know you've spoke on this, Julie, they deliberately made this a really difficult bioweapon to heal from, I believe, as well. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, with the patented things that are in it, as well as very complicated other viruses, they've produced the most perfect bioweapon they could have. I mean, look, Corona is kiddie stuff compared to this. Maybe
it's the cover.
Yes, quite possibly it could be. Quite possibly it could be. But because this has been sanctioned by, the Allied forces, they all knew about it. They were all involved in it. And Australia was ahead of the game. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgraceful.
It's so evil hearing, when these governments have actually experimented on people without their consent on home populations, like spraying them with ticks. Like, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And I think, it's something, it's so hard to look at, but it's something that we have to really comprehend so we can move.
It is very confronting. Just 2 weeks ago, there was confirmation that the chemtrails are spraying us with corona as well. So, look up in the sky and have a look at what's going on and ask yourself, what the hell is that? Well, it's another bioweapon. So the whole depopulation thing started during the Cold War with the Nazis doing what they did on a whole lot of different levels, but the rest of the world participated as well. So I can't wait for the Nuremberg trials.
Yeah,
they've all participated.
And what you're doing, Julie, I think is so fantastic, because you've written a book which would have been so difficult with your health. It's been, I mean, I know my worst, it's like, whoa, like trying to research is like a mammoth task, and to write a book as well, like, wow. So you are such an inspiration getting this information out there, because I know that there will probably be people listening to this that have similar symptoms and now have heard about Lymes, and might be able to get some more help, find out what different protocols are available. So to anyone listening to this video, I know it's kind of a topic that there hasn't been a lot of information out on there before, and I would love if anyone has a question or is experiencing these symptoms, please get in touch or write a question in the comments, and I would love to have Julie back again to do a follow-up where we can sort of dive a bit deeper into the wartime history, what these allies are up to with their nasty little five eyes against the people, and else. But is there anything you would like to finish on, Julie?
Gabbi, I want people to be awake now. Their government will hurt them, they have hurt them, and they are continuing to hurt us. And, you know, denial is not working anymore, because we all need to take personal responsibility for this. You know, you can't sit back any longer and believe that the party you voted for is going to do the right thing by you, because they're not.
This is bigger than
Nobody.
yeah.
And I'd love to come back and join you another time, and we'll talk further on this pandemic.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time, Julie, and thank you for your efforts writing this book and getting this help out to people that, you know, I've experienced in my life. My friends being so sick, you know, in their whole lives. And, you know, I just want to send you a very heartfelt thank you for what you're doing for a group.
Thank you, Gabby. I'm feeling the love. Thank
you. Wonderful. And yeah, we'll definitely have you back again soon, Julie. So anyone with a question who's experiencing Lymes or has in the past, please comment and ask any questions, and we can use them for next time.
And I'm available on Australian Lyme Crimes on Facebook. If anybody is desperate to be pointed in the right direction, given how ill you are, I understand. We will, with love, send you somewhere where you can. There isn't a cure, but we have people on standby who can talk you through this.
Wow. And actually, just to finish, Julie, would you be able to let people know how they can get a copy of your book? So I think it's a brilliant resource for people that
forget about it. I forget about it. Australian Lyme Crimes, The Global Disgrace, and it's available on Amazon, and it's also available from Amazon Australia.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And yeah, I have many questions for next time. So thank you for giving us a great overview of, you know, this.
Oh, Gabby, you're welcome.
Pandemic, and we will chat again soon.
Let's just tell the world about, you know, it's time. It's time.